What are some of the biggest what ifs in Tennessee Titans history? I'm going to give you guys my top 3 on today's edition of the Locked On Titans podcast. Let's get it.
You are Locked On Titans, your daily Tennessee Titans podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Titans podcast. I am your host, Tyler Rowland. Titans fans, you guys sent in your questions, and I have an excellent mailbag episode for you to end the week. Before we get into this mailbag episode, do want to let you know that it is brought to you by Birddogs. Go to birddogs.com/lockedonnfl, and they'll throw you a free custom Birddogs Yeti style tumbler with every order. I got my Birddogs on right now, ready to rock out the last show of the week. But again, it is a mailbag episode. We asked, what is the biggest what ifs in Tennessee Titans history? I'm going to give you my top 3. What if DeAndre Hopkins doesn't sign with the Titans? Also, what if Malik Willis is clearly quarterback 2 as we go through the summer? I'm going to answer all of those questions you guys sent in, but I do want to thank you guys for making the Locked On Titans podcast your first listen every day. Shout out to my everydayers out there. It's Monday through Friday, Tennessee Titans content all year round on all apps and always for free. Make sure that you get subscribed, stay subscribed to the Locked On Titans podcast. Right now, we're in the middle of our positional preview series where I go position by position through the offense and the defense, break down everybody who's on that 90-man roster going into training camp, ask some great questions about what the Titans should do and what different players can do at each of these positions. Of what we've talked about quarterback, we've talked about running back, we've talked about wide receiver. If you missed any of those, go back and check them out. We'll be hitting tight end, offensive line, and the defense in the coming weeks. So make sure, again, that you stay locked in to the Locked On Titans podcast. But let's dive into your questions. And of course, you can always send your mailbag questions to me on Twitter at TicTacTitans. But the first questions that I have here are very similar. So I kind of want to combine them together. But Max Bishop says, what's your biggest what if Titans moment of all time? And then Cody Weath asks, if there was one moment or event in Tennessee Titans history that you could change the outcome, what would it be and why? And to me, both of those questions are the same. What's the biggest what if moment for the Titans of all time? And I think that really everyone should be on board with this, that what if Kevin Dyson would have scored? I mean, the 1 yard short is if you're a Titans fan like me who's been around for a while, nearly 25 years as a Tennessee Titans fanatic, to me, it's obviously what if Kevin Dyson scored? Because you hear the 1 yard short all the time. I mean, it's been joked about in movies. It's just one of those things that you always think about if you're a Titans fan who's, again, been around that long. I know it was a long time ago. Not everybody watching the show was alive when that happened. But to me, that's got to be the number one. And after that, you can get in debates about everything. But if Kevin Dyson would have been able to break that tackle or stretch out a little further and actually score, the Titans may have their one and only Super Bowl. And that's got to be the biggest what if for me. But I wanted to do a couple of more what ifs for you guys as well. I'm going to give you guys my top 3 here. And I want to give some recent ones as well so that everybody's on board. Because you could go throughout Titans history and create a bunch of what ifs, whether it's drafts or free agencies or trades or different games and moments. Actually, put your biggest Titans what if down below in the comment section. Also, if you don't mind, throw a thumbs up on the video. The show's free. All I ask for in return is the press of a button. But anyways, another what if that will truly haunt me until the day I die. Unfortunately, I care that much about the Tennessee Titans that these games will be burned into my memory, and I'll literally remember most of them when I'm going. But Rashaan Evans missing that tackle on the sideline on Patrick Mahomes right before halftime. If Rashaan is just able to push him out of bounds, even if Mahomes gets a first down, that run, what was it, 30, 40 some yards through the entire, not only Titans defense, but the heart and soul of the team. Rashaan Evans missing that tackle, the Titans' first round linebacker, missing that tackle, and then Mahomes trotting all the way to the end zone, scoring the Titans were up 10-11 at that moment in time. The Chiefs get it. And you just knew at that moment in time from that run, the crowd went nuts. It was like, if you've ever played Madden and you do a couple of good plays with your X Factor player, the X starts glowing red. Mahomes' X started glowing red after that, and it was on the rest of the game. And that's how it works in real life. It doesn't turn off. There's no time limit like there is in Madden. So that moment really, like, I'll be honest with you guys. I was a child. I was 8 years old when the Kevin Dyson play happened. I mean, it sucked, but I'm 8. You know what I mean? The Rashaan Evans thing, like, that was the first year that this became my career. I was as invested in the Titans' success, and it has a bigger impact on me than ever before. And the magical run that they went on that year after they switched to Tannehill, I just knew they were going to the Super Bowl. Like, I could just feel it. And they were. And I am convinced to this day, if Rashaan Evans is able to make that tackle, the Titans go to the Super Bowl. And who the Chiefs go against? The 49ers, Jimmy Garoppolo. Derrick Henry is running down their throats, and the Titans are winning the Super Bowl. Like, I know it. I know it in my soul. I feel like I've seen it in my mind's eye. So, yeah, that is a big what if. And then I just want to throw in this last one. And when we look down 20 years from now, what if the Titans didn't trade A.J. Brown? If he wins a title or two in Philly, he already broke their regular season receiving yards record. I mean, he could go down as one of the best wide receivers of all time. And that will obviously be like one of the biggest player what ifs ever. We actually had him on the team. They let him go. But anyway, those are the 3 what ifs that I wanted to bring up. Kevin Dyson, the 1 yard short, if he would have scored. Rashaan Evans, tackle or non-tackle against Patrick Mahomes on the sideline in the AFC Championship game in 2019. And then the Titans trading A.J. Brown. Those are my 3 biggest what ifs right now. And again, put your biggest what ifs. And some of our fans who have been around as long as I have, some maybe of the older ones, would be fun to see in the comments as well. But we're going to move forward. I got more of your questions to dive into. What if DeAndre Hopkins does not sign with the Titans? I got some options and some good questions coming our way here in just a moment. Before we get into it, though, do want to let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you by Birddogs. I love my Birddog shorts. They are the most comfortable shorts of all time to play golf in, work out in. They're incredibly comfortable because they have a built-in liner in them. So, like, I know this may be TMI, but I don't wear underwear when I wear my Birddog shorts because they have like a built-in liner, which is basically underwear, and it's attached to the shorts though, so it stays tight to you. It's not too loose. It doesn't feel too tight though. And man, the fabric is like really soft and comfortable. Last time I tried to get up and show you guys, things got a little crazy. So I'll avoid doing that to your guys' satisfaction, I'm sure, this time. But my God, I just really love these shorts, and you guys got to check them out. They have khaki shorts as well. I have like a pastel blue color that goes well with like a button up on a summer day. So much versatility, so comfortable, way better than regular cotton clothes or shorts that you're used to wearing. I promise you that. Right now, go to birddogs.com/lockedonnfl, and they're going to give you a free Yeti-style tumbler with your order. So, I mean, where are you going to get a better deal than that? That's birddogs.com/lockedonnfl for a free Yeti-style tumbler. You won't want to take your Bird Dogs off. I don't want to take my Bird Dogs off. I promise you that. Titans fans, we are going to continue today's mailbag edition of the Locked On Titans podcast. You guys sent in some great questions. Again, you can send those questions to me at Tic Tac Titans on Twitter. I'm not going to lie, during this period before training camp, I'm probably going to do a mailbag every Friday, I would say. Makes a lot of sense. So that's probably what I'm looking at right now. So send those questions in. I'll bookmark them. I'll keep them until next week so that you can, make sure you send them in. You don't got to wait until next week to send them to me so that I remember I got you on that. Tag me in a tweet at Tic Tac Titans again, and I'll get those to you. But continuing forward here, we got a question from Rob, and it's a simple question, and I like it. Is D-Hop actually worth it? And to me, Rob, this is a simple answer. Yes. Look, I have said numerous times that I think the direction that the Titans are trying to go this season is the wrong direction. They should have did things a little bit differently, prioritize youth, all of that. Riding it out with a last dance with Tannehill and Henry, I just don't know what the ceiling is on that. But if you're Mike Vrabel in the organization and that's the way that you want to go is this last ride with Tannehill and Henry in the last year of their contracts, well, then you got to go out and get Hopkins and give yourself a chance. So even if it doesn't work out in the season, like we've seen before, as we know, just the idea of adding Hopkins for what the Titans are trying to do this year and maximize wins, it's worth it. It's worth it. And financially, they're going to set the contract up in a way to where it's not something that they can't stomach going forward. So it's absolutely worth it, in my opinion, Rob. But good question. Another question that has to do with Hopkins is from QB2 on Twitter. A strange name, but a good question nonetheless. Would D-Hop be worth more to the Titans than other teams due to the impact he would have on Burks' development? It would give him a true number one to learn from, as well as take some pressure and defensive attention away from him. Okay, I think that's a great point, QB2. I really do. And it's from two perspectives, in my opinion. One, obviously on the field, like you mentioned, it's going to take defensive pressure off of him. It's going to allow Burks to have a little bit more room, a little bit more freedom, a little bit more ability to go up and make plays. We know that Burks is going to win a lot of one-on-one matchups with contested catch situations where you got to go up and high point it because he's bigger and more physical than most of the cornerbacks in the NFL. So the only way that that's going to work is if he gets those one-on-one matchups to take advantage. If teams can consistently keep their safety hovering over top of him, it's going to make it tough. But if you have Hopkins on the other side of the field, you can't necessarily leave your cornerback one-on-one with DeAndre Hopkins, even if they're a good cornerback, because we know Hopkins is one of the best wide receivers in the NFL at being open even when he's not open. So on the field, it's obvious how that's going to help Burks. But I think even off the field, showing Burks different, and I don't necessarily mean off the field, on the field. I mean like on the field production-wise, like we just talked about, but off the field craft. You know what I mean? Or on the field craft, I guess is really what I mean to say. Different release packages, different ways to be covered, but be open and catch the ball, ways to adjust to the ball, ways to notice what cornerbacks are doing and understand how to set them up as the ball is in the air without tipping them off to it. Little tricks that a guy like Hopkins, who isn't the most freak explosive don't get me wrong, guy sitting in his basement, DeAndre Hopkins is a freak explosive athlete, but he's not compared to like Tyreek Hill or Justin Jefferson may not be a good example, but DK Metcalf. You know what I mean? Like he isn't a guy who has thrived off pure speed and this incredible athletic profile. He's a guy who wins with craft and understanding. So he can part all that wisdom onto Treylon Burks. So I think that's an excellent point, and that's why the Hopkins thing, for the reasons I just explained with both those questions, is so important for the Titans. But I like the next two questions that they have, and basically the same question, but from two different people. So I want to give shout outs to both, but it acknowledges the reality of what if the Titans don't get DeAndre Hopkins? What happens then? So first question is from Gannon Cornley. And he says, if D-Hop decides to go elsewhere, do you think the Titans roll into the season with their current wide receiver core? My answer would be yes. I think they will, or it won't be a free agent that they'll pick up. It'll be somebody who got cut, which we don't know right now. And if not, who else could be a realistic answer to bring in besides D-Hop? And then a similar question is from Johnny the Russ, and he says there's a lot of hype around D-Hop right now amongst Titans fans, but there's still a good chance he doesn't end up in two-tone blue. Are there any compelling backup options out there at wide receiver in case D-Hop decides to call somewhere other than Nashville his new home? Those are both great questions, guys, and it's basically just what do the Titans do if Hopkins goes to New England or somewhere else at this time. And look, if you want to look at free agency, then a guy like Rashad Higgins makes some sense, had some success in his career, started some games. I think he's got some natural talent, and he's a bigger bodied guy who can win on the outside, which is what I think the Titans need. And if the Titans really want to be desperate, Kenny Golladay. So Golladay is a guy, I absolutely crushed Golladay in my film review when the Titans played the Giants. I have never seen somebody run a deep in on a dagger route, or he was the inside slot running the vertical. Yeah. So he ran a vertical route on a dagger concept, which is where the inside receiver runs a vertical route, the outside receiver runs a deep in dagger. And the point is that the vertical route from the inside has to clear quickly so that it opens up the middle space where the dig is coming. You got to be able to influence defenders in that area to open that concept up. And he just absolutely lollygagged through it, and he didn't play the rest of the game. So Brian Dable saw what I saw, and it was despicable. So obviously Kenny Golladay getting a big contract and then disappearing off the face of the planet is not a good sign. But, I mean, he had natural ability that got him that big contract in the first place. And maybe what's happened in his career the last few years has woken him up a little bit to what he needs to do. And maybe you get like a career resurrection out of Kenny Golladay and he turns into a solid contributor. You know, those are options. If not, it's going to be somebody who's cut on another team. I'm looking at the Jets, who have a lot of guys. Of course, Corey Davis involved in that. I'm looking at the Browns, who have quite a bit of guys. At wide receiver, there are some other teams as well that could let some guys go that could be of interest to the Titans. So if they don't get Hopkins, it's probably going to be somebody who gets cut from another team, a veteran that they want to give the spot to a young guy. And then that in turn will be an option for the Titans. But I mean, we're talking a few months away before that happens, maybe right before free agency or right before training camp. Some teams start to turn their roster a little bit and let those veteran guys go. But right now, it's just hard to know exactly who would be available to give you those exact names. Although I have written for Sports Illustrated at alltitans.com, I have written a column or an article on the teams and the players that could eventually be cut. So you can go check that out as well. Worked pretty hard on that one, but we'll dive into that here. And as we get closer to training camp, that may be something I focus on, especially if, in fact, Hopkins does sign elsewhere. That's going to be exactly what we talk about during that show. So we'll get into that conversation eventually. Moving forward, though, some other great questions coming from you guys to go on top of the great questions that we've already gotten. What happens if Malik Willis continues to impress and is just quarterback two? How do the Titans handle that? Got some interesting questions on that note. Also, most underrated and overrated Titan going into the season. I've an answer for both of those. Pretty obvious one for me. So we're going to get into that in just a moment. Titans fans, let's cap off today's edition of the Locked On Titans podcast. Little mailbag episode. Again, you could send your questions to me at Tic Tac Titans. Probably going to do a mailbag episode at the end of the week, every week leading up to training camp. It's that time of year, so get in your guys' questions. Let's have some fun talking about it. Got some great questions coming up from you guys as well, though. Before we get into them, want to thank you for making the Locked On Titans podcast your first listen every day. Remember, Monday through Friday, Tennessee Titans content all year round on all apps, always for free. Make sure you get subscribed, stay subscribed to the Locked On Titans podcast. We are in the middle of our training camp positional preview where I go through every single position on both sides of the ball and just break down who is on the Titans roster. And we have some fun conversations around who could be the breakout guy in the group, who's a dark horse to make the roster, who are the stars that really need to produce, all those different questions. So it's fun. We've gone through quarterback, running back, wide receiver so far. We're going to get into tight end, offensive line, defense going up in recent weeks. Check those out if you missed them. Everydayers already saw those because they're locked in, baby. Love my everydayers. Let me know who you are down below in the comments. And it's late in the show, so it's kind of an Easter egg for us as well. If you're still watching, shout out to my everydayers. But just stay locked in to the Locked On Titans podcast. Free Monday through Friday. It's your team every day. My guy, Maximus Titan fan, at Maximus Titan fan. Follow him, actually. If Levis continues to struggle like this through training camp, and Malik continues to flourish like this through training camp, do you think there's a possibility that Malik Willis becomes QB number 2. And yeah, I think the obvious answer is sure. Sure, he could. If he drastically outperforms Will Levis, then I mean, they'll have no choice. I mean, it'll be obvious. But to me, that's one of those things. It's not just training camp. We need to see it in the preseason. And like I said, I want to pump the brakes on the Malik Willis hype train. He may be improved, but that doesn't mean he's improved enough. So we're going to have to see that in real games. It's different when you can't hit the quarterback and he knows he's not going to get hit. And it can help him go through his progressions quicker now and all of that, but he's got to be able to translate it to a game. So I have some people, when I say things about Malik Willis like that, come to me and say that, I don't know why you're so high on Will Levis. I'm not that high on Will Levis. I wasn't high on Will Levis coming into the draft either. I think he's a 24-year-old quarterback that still needs development, and that's worrisome. And I would hope that he would have performed better through the month of OTAs that happened. But at the end of the day, it's a month of OTAs. And the familiarity that gets people excited about Will Levis and how comfortable he would be in a Titan-style offense, that comfortability maybe will show up more now that he's got his feet under him. This isn't his first time ever practicing with the team. He takes that break, that sigh, that deep breath, and then gets into training camp. Maybe things will slow down a little bit. So I just don't want to call the fight too early. That's really what I'm against, So I have my concerns about Malik. I have my concerns about Will Levis, but I could absolutely see Malik Willis beating him out and being quarterback too. That could surely happen. But a great question here from Brett that I thought was interesting, a great follow-up. If Malik Willis keeps his post-OTA hype into the preseason, would you rather trade him to a team without a potential quarterback in the future or keep 3 quarterbacks on the roster? Look, back to what I just said, I'm not like a huge believer in Will Levis by any means. So I would want to keep Malik. And I mean, if he's clearly better than Will Levis throughout preseason and everything, then why would we not believe that maybe he'll just be better? So I wouldn't risk getting rid of any of them unless there's a clear winner here and it's not Malik Willis. If Levis is clearly better than Willis, then you can let Willis go. But if Willis is clearly better than Levis, you got to keep both those guys and see what happens, because they're probably letting Tannehill go after the year anyway. But that is a great segue into a great question from Nick Bradley, who says, for the mailbag, so figuratively speaking, would you re-sign Tannehill to a 1 to 2 year deal if he balls out this season and takes us deep into the playoffs? If the Titans go to the AFC Championship game again, you run it back. You run it back. Because that is like a hitting the ceiling. And if this group, let's say they add Hopkins, you get Hopkins, Burks explodes. Chig is the player that we expect. The additions on the offensive line really do work. Derrick Henry runs for 1,800. Ryan Tannehill is back spinning it, feeling comfortable, all that. And the defense takes steps. Like if everything hits, Azeez, Harold Landry comes back right. Simmons gets even more dominant. Byard picks all 5 to 6 passes. Fulton stays healthy. Sean Murphy bunting works out. If all that stuff happens and the Titans go, you got to run it back again. The Titans haven't had enough shots at the Super Bowl that if they make a deep playoff run, they have to try to add to and just take their medicine on the quarterbacks they drafted, add to what they're doing and try it one more time. I think they're getting further away from that. But if they get back to that sort of peak, you got to bring Tannehill back on a 1 year deal. Just give them another 1 year deal and go. They got cap space next year. They won't kill themselves to do it. Just give them a 1 year deal. Add some void years, give him like $20 million for one season, bring him back, and you got to give it a shot again. If they do that, you know what I mean? But moving away from the quarterback discussion, great question here from Tighten Up. My apologies. Jay King. Jay King says, who is your most underrated and overrated Titan for the 2023 season? He says it's a projection, of course, which obviously it is. But for me, underrated is Tajay Spears. Some people were hating on that pick because of the knee and everything. I think Spears is going to come out and impress people. And I think the Titans, I talked with Brian Peacock of Peacock and Williamson. Go check out that show. But I talked with Brian Peacock of Peacock and Williamson and filled in for Williamson for a show to talk about the Titans. And I said that Tajay Spears is a guy that you got to, like, fantasy-wise think about, because the Titans are changing to a more multiple offense. It's not going to be so outside zone based. They're going to have that. They're going to be able to run wide, mid, inside zone for sure. But they're going to incorporate more gap and more man runs, which I think a guy like Spears may have more success with than Henry because of the short area change of direction skills. So I think Tajay Spears will have a big impact for the Titans. I think he's underrated right now because he's a rookie in the injury conversation and the third round pick. I think he's going to have a bigger impact than people realize. And then overrated, this maybe goes against the grain a little bit of what some folks have been saying lately, but for me, overrated is Monty Rice. Monty Rice does play with speed. He plays with aggression, but I don't see a guy who the Titans are going to be looking to extend after he's done with his 4 years right now. I just don't see that. And he said a lot on Twitter, basically saying that, he's going to prove people wrong and all of that. And I don't think there's a lot of people out there hating on Monty Rice. And I don't mean to be hating on Monty Rice. I'm just saying I think he's another guy who, like David Long, David Long had some great moments. David Long looked awesome. At times, he would have you saying, oh, they got to re-sign him. I think Monty Rice is going to have some good moments, but I think Azeez Al-Shire is better. So the Titans are going to look at that and say, we'd rather maybe take a chance on a veteran than give Monty Rice another contract. And I know he's not a free agent after this season, but I'm just giving you an idea of the type of player that I think he is. I don't think he's going to be a must re-sign after 2024. They're just going to let him go in free agency and add another young linebacker in the next couple of years and keep it moving. So linebacker is one of those spots where I just don't think the Titans are going to be making investments or giving second contracts. It's like running back. We're not going to be giving second contracts unless a guy is generational. So hydration break. Had to get to it or I was going to have a coughing fit on you guys. But last few questions here, and got some questions on Kyle Phillips. Again, Tighten Up said, what's your real thoughts, expectations for Kyle Phillips this year? And then Ashton Kennedy said over under 500 all-purpose yards for Kyle Phillips. That's an over for me. Kyle Phillips needs to be between 500 and 900 all-purpose. I think as a receiver, he just needs to be between 500 and 700. I think he could get 55 catches, 670 yards, 4 touchdowns. I think that would be a pretty good season for Kyle Phillips, if you ask me. And the Titans need that to happen because, again, like I was talking about yesterday on the wide receiver preview show, teams play tight man coverage against the Titans and dare them to beat them one-on-one. Phillips can do that. He can win one-on-one. He just has to stay healthy. And if he stays healthy, I think that's the kind of numbers that he's going to be able to produce. So those are my realistic expectations. But I'll say over 500 yards for Kyle Phillips. I'm hoping. Travis P. said, do you think the win streak, 11 games, baby, and division lead for the Cincinnati Reds makes the Reds a buyer at the deadline, or do they wait until more money comes off the books after this year? I think they have to be a buyer. This team looks like it could be the best team that they've had in a decade or more. If they remain hot, if they're leading the NL Central as we get closer to the trade deadline, they need to be buyers, bring in some middle relief to the bullpen and maybe another starter. I think that would be great. I think they have the offense that they need. Sorry, I had to throw in a Reds question there. I'm so hyped. I know, guys. I know. And then Caleb Dyson asked if me and my fiance had picked a honeymoon yet. And no, we haven't. We have not. So I know people always make weird comments, but we just haven't thought about it yet. So anyways, moving right along. That's going to do it for me today, folks. That's going to do it for me this week, folks. It was a great week of Locked On Titans podcast. It's going to be a great one next week as well as we continue our positional preview. But that is going to do it for me today, folks. As always, I am your host, Tyler Rowland, and this was Locked On Titans.